Hello and welcome to this instalment of Talkin Trim. I'm Jonathon Skinner and today we are looking at the trim panel kit for the Triumph TR6. Now there are a few different versions of the panels for the TR6 based on what year, what month and crucially what chassis number was used, but it all really applies to the HFRF weld patterns that appeared on the door panels, on the quarter panels and on the rear bulkhead panel. The very first TR6s, sort of 1969 going into the early months of 1970, would have had more weld lines on them, and they had vertical weld lines on the rear bulkhead. Basically they carried on from the earlier TR4 and TR5s in terms of the patterns. Let me just show you in the book. Like there's the door panel there where you've got lots of lines, 4 lines at the top going front to back versus 2 lines not going fully to the front, and that went hand in hand with the quarter panels having more lines on them there, and the rear bulkhead panel having lots of lines going vertically down versus 2 lines on the quarter panels there and 2 horizontal lines on the rear bulkhead there versus the lots of lines going vertically on those there. So just bear that in mind. The very first TR6s did have different trim panels. This is for the majority of the rest of the TR6s. Now it should be worth noting as well, the very last versions of the TR6s, we're sort of talking circa late 75, early 76, also had a hole trimmed out in the middle, exactly where this perforation is, and it would be fully trimmed out, and that became the door release mechanism and pull for sort of opening and closing the door. So this video doesn't really cover that element of things. In theory, the rest of it is the same. It's purely whether that's trimmed out or not, but I have done a separate video dedicated specifically to that kit there, so do bear that in mind. It's also worth noting I have done other videos detailing the, should we say, the evolution of the TR6 doors, so it's worth checking that out as well, as it does go into a bit more detail than I plan to do in this video here. So these panels are effectively correct for 1970 up until sort of 1974-ish, 1975 maybe, all dependent on the hole cut out there. But generally speaking, they are relevant to the cars starting with CP or CC up above 50,000. If they're below 50,000, you get the lots of lines patterns that I showed you in the book. If they're above 50,000, it switches to this style here. But also it'll be relevant to some of the CR and CF version cars, the later cars from 73 onwards. But basically just keep in mind that the very last version of the car had a full cutout there for the door pull release mechanism. Now this trim panel kit, I basically got all of the main trim panels which are included in the trim panel kit, but additionally I've also included these black door top pull finisher items there, which are not part of the trim panel kit. They are sold separately, but I want to include them in the video because you may wish to consider getting them at the same time. Bear that in mind. I've also done a video detailing those trimmed up and the different versions, the early versus the late versions, so do check that out as well, but I'll mention that briefly as we go through this video there. I've also included the fixings, which again I'll show you a bit more of. They are sold separately as well, but obviously we recommend you get them at the same time. So this trim panel kit, we sell it as a trim panel kit, but we do supply the parts individually if you want. But when we sell parts individually, we mean in car sets. So for example, the door panels are sold as a pair, the Bost Gusset Panels sold as a pair, quarter panel, wheel arch panels sold as a pair, wheel arch cover sold as a pair, and the rear bulkhead sold as a single unit, etc. So we can sell those items individually, but bear in mind when we say individually, we mean in car sets. But it does work out significantly cheaper to buy as a car set, and it also has the added benefit that everything will be made out of the same batch of materials, so everything's going to match. But also everything's going to match in terms of the quality and workmanship. It's all going to be our stuff, so none of the other parts will let the final look of the car down. So bear that in mind. We do encourage people to buy things in bundle kits effectively for that reason. But let's guide you through the various parts in this kit as best I can. So let's start with the door panels, and just the door panels for the time being, not the door tops. So we're obviously talking about this version here with the 2-line pattern there, as I detailed before. They are, this whole kit's been done in Biscuit Light Tan, which is an original Triumph colour. It's been done in vinyl, but of course we can offer in leather if you want. And even for leather kits, we can offer the HFRF weld pattern in leather, which I believe no other companies tend to offer in this industry. I don't know whether they haven't got the capabilities or not. It's worth noting as well that we do the actual original HFRF weld on the panels and the pockets. We don't stitch them like other companies out there. Those companies will try and claim that stitches last longer than HFRF weld patterns. They do not. It's simply they haven't invested tens of thousands of pounds in HFRF welding tools and machines. So bear that in mind. It's amazing what people say to try and get a sale. But yeah, we've got all of the correct brass tool patterns for the HFRF weld patterns of all the TR models. Again, one of the only companies in the world that actually has that. So the panels themselves, all of the panels in this video, apart from the B posts, are done in hardboard. They're done in marine and automotive grade hardboard. So they are water resistant. They're not waterproof, but they are water resistant. Excuse me, sorry, some random material poles just falling over in the background there. And it's a hell of a lot better than they were originally from the factory in terms of that. So do not worry about the quality of that side of things. It's far superior to marine ply, which some people claim is a better material to use. This is not. We've used the same material for decades now. It's 2.55 mil as well, hardboard, and it's treated. You can get 3 mil standard hardboard at most sort of DIY stores. This is 2.55 mil, and that does make the crucial difference on the fitment side of it. It's one that we get specially made and imported purely for our interior trim panels, and we've used it for decades to good effect. So just bear that in mind. It's down to these details that means that we're one of, if not the most respected TR manufacturer in the world of interior kits. So they're all cut on our in-house CNC CAD machine. They have the pilot holes around the outside for obviously the fixings, which are these. I'll go over those in a second. Then you have the pilot holes for the window winder and door release element of things there. This you kind of ignore, that's for the later car, for the central door pull release. Then we've actually also included the holes there if you wanted to put one of those chrome handles on. We'll keep that in there as an option, purely because that's what my father's got in his TR5 and he likes it, so we thought we'd give you the option. And then it has this sort of pilot holes here, which are where the fixings go for the pockets, which I'll go in onto in a second. They're obviously trimmed all the way around. So they're HFRF welded, so you get this beautiful embossed pattern into the vinyl itself. The pocket is also welded and it's elasticated as well, so great for storing. I think originally probably for maps, but these days handily will store a nice iPhone or other smartphone in there. Pocket gets trimmed through onto the back there. It's piped all the way around the outside. Now for the piping we use Levercloth where available. Most colours do allow for Levercloth, and it ends up with an absolutely beautiful result. We don't use vinyl where we can avoid it on piping because it's not that suitable. It's a bit trouble with vinyl is it's a bit thicker, and therefore going around such a small area such as the plastic piping there, it becomes a bit more bulbous, which one makes it actually harder to fit. Two, I don't think it looks as nice. And three, actually vinyl for piping, it's got a slightly different coating on the front of it, and so if you kind of scratch vinyl, it's quite grippy, and so it would snag, especially given it's pulled so tightly around the piping, whereas Levercloth, you can scratch it and nothing happens. So it's a very robust material, so it's perfect for piping and for binding of carpets as well. Do see my blog post and my other video detailing the pros and cons of the two materials, because a lot of other companies out there as standard will pipe their panels in vinyl, either unaware of the differences and the effects of those differences, but I'd say mostly it's a cost-saving exercise because they can't be bothered to store and stock two versions of very similar materials. But we don't. We pride ourselves on making sure we use quality materials and the correct materials for these sorts of things, so just bear that in mind. It's again one of the reasons we are known and trusted amongst the Triumph community for manufacturing the best kits in the world. So yeah, that's the piping. They're piped all the way, excuse me, all the way around. As I mentioned, TR6 piping was the same colour as the main trim, whereas the earlier sort of TR5s, 250s and 4s were white piping generally. Also worth noting that piping originally on the panels was actually plastic normally, but unless you're ordering a black kit from us, in which case we do have black plastic piping, we would use Levercloth for it, which is a better piping. And even if you are ordering a black kit from us, if you happen to be ordering seats at the same time, we'd always make the seats using Levercloth piping, and therefore we do the panels to match, so bear that in mind. So yeah, they're the door panels. Like I say, a pair of them, beautifully made. We literally sell these things like hotcakes. So yeah, I'll come back to the door tops because they're kind of an optional extra, and I'll come back to the fixings as well at the end. Let's carry on with the actual trim panels. So then you've got what we refer to as the B-post finishes, or the B-post gusset panels, and they are a millboard material, creased, and then they're trimmed not quite all the way around. If I revert to this one, which is the right hand one here, this bottom edge here goes against the carpet sill, and we don't trim that edge round deliberately, so that will go onto the effectively the sill floor element of the car and tuck underneath the carpet. This back edge is trimmed, then that's folded over like that, and it kind of sits in the car like that effectively. And then this big flap here gets looped around onto the back, because for the TR5s and the TR250s and the TR6s, these are the same, and effectively that then loops around onto the back, onto effectively the outside of the car. So you kind of see it if you just looked in that door there, whereas the earlier cars didn't. You had exposed bodywork there. The later cars had material looping around onto the back. So you get a pair of the B-post gusset finisher panels. You then get a pair of B-post strips, which are effectively literally what the kind of door closes on. And they're just oversized bits of material, vinyl in this case, for trimming directly to the bodywork of the car. You then trim it back ever so slightly to get it to correctly go onto the bodywork of the car, then job done. So you get a pair of those. You then got the actual, we refer to them as quarter panels. Other people call them B-post panels, or potentially wheel arch panels. And so they're obviously the panels that go bending over the wheel arch. If I start moving this book back with us, we haven't got any showing the TR6, but I'll find one showing the earlier cars because the concepts are identical. And there you are, perfect. That's the B-post gusset there, just FYI. There we are, so the quarter panel there, so it goes up the B-post effectively and then round and bends round onto the back sort of deck area. So again, they are hardboard, cut on our in-house CNC machine, same thickness again. They're RF HF welded again. Obviously I've mentioned the differences in the patterns between the different cars. They have the pilot holes going around them, some for seat belts, others for the hood frame mechanism side of things and fixings and whatnot. Then you'll notice again, we don't trim the bottom part and we don't trim the end part there, and that's done by design deliberately. Basically means that again, that bends down onto the floor and gets hidden underneath carpet, so you get a nice seamless finish between it all. And then the overhangs on the back here mean that when this bends around the corner, it gets tucked. Hard to do one-handed, but you get the concept. It gets tucked underneath there, like that. And again, going to my earlier comment about the hardboard material, it's beautiful because you can see how it curves, and this material here has a great bit of curve to it while maintaining its core strength. So that again is a real plus of this material, and often people will think you should be using marine ply, but you wouldn't get that from marine ply. It would end up snapping. So bear that in mind. We've chosen the material for a reason effectively on that one. With the quarter panels as well, they are piped, but for the TR6s, the piping stopped at the corner there. The earlier cars, it went round the corner and disappeared, but the TR6s, it stopped there. And we've got tiny little pilot holes there as well, just FYI. So they're the B-post quarter panels. You then get a pair of wheel arch covers. They're pre-sewn, they have piping obviously, and then they also have the foam padding. There's 2 pieces there, and they are obviously these bits here that go kind of over the rear shelf carpet section area there. So you get a pair of those, all fully sewn. Again, they are slightly oversized, which allows you to put cuts into it, and it will bend down onto the rear shelf area for best fitment throughout all the pieces there. And then finally you get the rear bulkhead panels. This is the part of the absolute back of the car. Hardboard again has the fixing pilot holes, pilot cuts into them, trimmed all the way around, and then has the HFRF weld pattern going from left to right. Again, it's hardboard, so it does allow for the curve of the car, which again is crucial, as you need that to get it to fit into the car properly. Has obviously the cutaway there for the diff hump. I think that pretty much covers it for the trim panels. So let's now just touch on the fixings. So for the door panels, you get obviously multiples of. So you get the main trim clip here, which are the ones that go into here. Now originally they were black and ever so slightly smaller. Excuse me, ever so slightly smaller. We supply green ones, which are ever so slightly bigger, and we do that again by design. It's not a mistake. It makes them initially harder to fit, but it means that they won't rattle off. The problem with these cars, as you're driving along, especially in this area here where it gets quite thick, you're driving along and the fixings tend to work their way off and pop, your panel comes off in a certain area. These ones here are bigger, and so they're less likely to pop off. But like I say, they are a bit harder to fit. What you tend to have to do is put them into place there, and then I'll demonstrate on this one here. So the fixing's behind there and ready to go. You're effectively kind of punching over the fixing to get it to pop into the actual bodywork itself. So do bear that in mind. We supply them like that and have done for many, many years. Causes a couple of people confusion, but when it's explained, they understand it. You then also get screw, washer and cap finisher, which is all related to the door pockets. If I can... They are there, so you get finishers on the end there. Currently only available in black, but we are looking to get some made for all of our main colours. So they're all the fixings for the door panels themselves. Then you get a bag of screws and washers, the posi type screws, which are for certainly the rear bulkhead and a couple of the other panels in the car there. So bear that in mind. Let's just see if I've missed anything. Going the wrong way. Excuse me. Yeah, there you are. So you can just see on the rear bulkhead the chrome fixings and whatnot. So yeah, they're the fixings, and yeah, like I say, some of them get used on the quarter panels as well, those green ones. For the wheel arches, you'll need glue. If you're based in the UK, we can supply that glue. If you're based outside the UK, we cannot. We're not legally allowed to ship it. But I can obviously advise you on what you need and the best way of applying it as well. So let's go on to the door tops, which, like I say, are sold completely independently of the trim panel kit. But you may wish to consider it at the same time. Basically, the kind of TR4As up until the very last version of the TR6s, where they changed them slightly, were these black moulded. They were always black, regardless of the other trim, and they were sort of a PVC material moulded plastic, and they had in them a little indentation there, which is for pulling the door shut, etc. So obviously a lot of the original ones you can reuse, but if you can't, we can supply these units here. So they are all moulded plastic to imitate the originals. They've got the indentation there, and then obviously you've got the overhangs here, which get tucked effectively underneath the door panel there, and then that's wrapped round and cut away on the top there. So effectively, when everything's said and done, you just get the main bulk of it there. So that's obviously the front. You get the finger hole there, and then it sort of jumps and curves up at the back there effectively. Worth bearing in mind that the later version TR6s, which had the hole cut out there, had a completely different version of those, so bear that in mind. But we can supply those. What we can also do is supply you a retrim kit for covering your original one. So whether you're planning on changing the colour or maybe the material to leather, then we can supply you some material oversized to retrim those. If they were leather, we would skive down the leather standard for you so that it makes it a bit easier and more pliable to cover in that area there. Of course, if you want, we can actually retrim them for you. So whether you send us your original ones, and assuming they're in good enough condition, we can retrim them for you. Or alternatively, we can use some of these aftermarket molded ones and retrim these elements for you up in whatever colour you want, and also in vinyl and leather, whatever you choose. Worth checking out my video, which will go live shortly, which shows some of those fully trimmed up in leather, I believe. So yeah, worth checking that out. So yeah, I think that kind of covers absolutely everything. Like I say, TR6 kit covers most of the TR6s, but not all of them. So do check out the other videos if you have one of the other versions of TR6s. But yeah, I think that about covers it. Thanks for tuning in. Please remember to like, subscribe and share with other classic car enthusiasts out there. Of course, be sure to check in with us for the next video, and obviously if you've got a TR6 restoration coming up, then check out the other videos on my YouTube channel, as well as getting in contact with us either via our website or in the comment section below or via email. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.